Okay, God, thank you for this day. Thank you for this group of people, God. And right now we just pray for Aunt Ella, that you would just use her, hide her behind the cross, Father, and that we would just learn everything that we can and that we can equip ourselves to be better leaders, God. And yeah, in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Awesome. So, welcome to Planning 101. I hope you're in the right class.
Yes.
If not, you might want to go. I go. Are you sure you want to? So, we're gonna touch on some really practical stuff. I think some of you guys might be familiar with some of these concepts. One of the things we're gonna talk about is, I think you've heard this, is this model called RPM, which is planning it out kind of thing. And then from there we're gonna go into like some practical applications on how to plan. And if we have time we'll do something else, but if not, then not. Yeah. So RPM, if you guys don't know what it is, it's sorry, let me back up a bit. So before, if you guys were in the youth, which I think a lot of you, actually all of you were, we had, if you were to ask us what we were to expect, we were like, I don't know, I just need to plan the next thing. We were kind of on like a survival mentality, and we didn't really have a vision for the future. It's about what's the next thing, And now it's very different today, because now we're dreaming big. We have this goal, we have this vision. And it makes a whole difference if you're planning activities in the year with a vision in mind. Alright, so it makes a big difference if you are planning something with a vision in mind. Alright? So the first thing I wanted to touch on is this model called RPM, which your Kuya Richard taught us. And it's called, I don't know if you guys know the missile, RPM, the gun, no. Well,
RPG?
Oh. Okay, never mind. That was where the idea came from. Okay, scratch that, cut that out. Okay, so I thought it was RPM. Okay, never mind. The idea is to be, R stands for results focused. This is not in the notes that you have there. Results focus. P is purpose driven, and M is massive action plan. So when you do results focus, is what you have to think about this is, what is the outcome you are trying to achieve? And this works for ministry, this works for your personal life. What is the outcome you are planning to achieve? So for example, you want to lose weight, right? Some people just kind of want to just like, oh, I'll just keep running, keep not eating, but they forget that their goal is to lose weight, to be healthy. It's often, and then they just go to the gym, and then they go, and then after a while they forget and they stop. You know, like New Year's, everybody goes to the gym, and then they stop. Right? And that's because they're focusing on, I gotta run, instead of, why am I doing this? What is the reason for this? So the first is really to be result focused, to lay it down in detail. It has to be measurable. Right? It has to be measurable, it has to be, you can't just say like, oh, I'll lose like weight in the next, I'll lose weight, basically. You need to put like, okay, I will try to lose 10 pounds in 1 year. Does that make sense? There's a big difference because it makes your action plan later on more focused, right? And the other is purpose driven, which was what I was saying. The reason for your why you want to get it done has to be very important. It has to be big enough. Has to be big enough in order for you to do it, because we're very lazy people. It's almost like human nature. We don't want to do anything. All right? So the why has to be important. Like, why are you going to school? I need a job, I need a career, I need a good life. Or why are you going to work? Oh, I have to go work. It's Monday again, but I really need to save up for that trip I'm planning to the Philippines. Your why has to be big enough to get you out of bed, to get you going. And then the third is a massive action plan. Okay? Basically, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. Massive action plan, you need to have clear actions and steps you will do to accomplish the goal. And what is your goal? Which is the result focus. So you need to really outline it. Okay, for example, going back to losing weight. okay, in a week, I'm going to jog 3 times a week. 3 times a week, I'm going to not eat rice I'm going to only eat rice once a day. It has to be detailed and it has to be clear, right? Any questions so far? So that's RPM, not RPG. No, RPG is role-playing game.
RPG is also the god.
Oh, I knew that. Never mind. Okay, RPM.
Well, RPM is
Today's
like
RPM.
Richard taught us about that. RPM is like your dashboard, the RPM keeps you moving kind of thing.
Oh, there you go. That's what it's about then. Yeah, I thought it was a gun. I don't know why I thought it was a gun. Okay.
Sounds like a gun.
All right. So that's, I think, in any ministry you have, any whether goals that you have, it's very important. This is very important, especially when you're planning, because if you don't know what your goal is, it doesn't matter what you plan or how you plan, how well you plan. You're not trying to achieve anything. It's just gonna be like, okay, it'll be like us before when we were just, okay, what's the next activity? It's like a survival mode. Okay, I just have to get this done, and then the next thing. We don't really have a clear vision of what we wanted to do. But when you have a clear vision, you can dream about all these possibilities, about dreaming big. So, we'll get down to the practical side of planning, which is, you guys should have like a worksheet that looks like this. Okay, so planning 101. Very clear steps here. Planning, communicating, implementing. I think some of you have experience with planning CAPs already, right? Or even with your groups. So the first really is, do you guys have any like thoughts or experience, comments that you guys want to share about planning? Where you suck at, where you're really good at. I'm just saying. Where you suck at. Okay. I'm looking at all of you. There's areas where we like, oh sorry, that was recorded. Which areas do you think you need improvement? Or like, where have you failed at planning?
I think for me, it's like I have the tendency to like dream a lot, but kind of finding ways to like achieve those dreams. If I don't have it now, like those steps, I'm like, ugh. You know, I just fall back and like type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's one of the things, right? Like, and that's why later on we'll talk about actually implementing it.
Yeah.
Because there's so much you can plan, but you actually have to do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Just do it.
So yeah, that is like one of the things that, especially for New Year's resolutions, people think about, oh, I gotta change this, I gotta do this. Oh, it'll be great if I do this, but they never actually end up doing it.
Yeah.
And that's why it goes back to the RPM, where your why has to be big enough, right? Is there anything that you guys like want to address or have issues with planning? Where do you guys see this planning? Where do you need planning in? Is it like for ministry or your personal life?
All things.
All things.
Yeah. At the end of the council.
All the above. Okay. All right. So this is going to be a very practical planning session. It's not. I don't even think I reference the Bible a lot. But I'm pretty sure planning is in the Bible somewhere in Proverbs. Don't be lazy. That's I think. Okay. So the reason for this is. So it's like it's not the planning where you're like trying to figure out what God's heart is, or that's different. I think this is very like hands-on approach. I think this is very important because sometimes we get almost like at church we get too like spiritual, that we get carried by emotions and end up not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's one of the things you're saying, right? We're like, we get so passionate, we get so energetic, and then...
Yeah, like you get so driven by the dream that God's given you, but then it's just like, you realize that you have to like literally plan it and implement ideas on how to achieve those.
Yes. And actually one of the examples that of like Joseph the dreamer is, I think you Richard talked about this before, Joseph the dreamer dreamed big, and then he actually executed, he planned it, right? And there are all sorts of examples in the Bible about God giving people a dream and then them actually like planning it, doing it in details. So like I said, this is a more hands-on approach, strictly about planning in the general sense. Now this could apply even outside the church. This works for smaller activities. You don't have to do this in detail. I guess this is like a general big thing, but you could also carry the lessons that for this in like a smaller group settings, like your discipleship, right? So also a thing to note before we start, everyone has their own way of doing things. And the more you do the things, the more you plan, the more you implement, the more comfortable you'll be at it. You'll learn from your mistakes. You know, me, Atitin, and your Kuya Paul, when we were first plugged into youth, we didn't know what we were doing. It's like we learn as we go. It was like a trial and error, all right? But now you guys it's better for you because you have a lot of resources at hand. You have a lot of leaders who can help you, a lot of online resources that will help you in order to plan better. But like I said, you will find your own way of doing things. Don't expect everyone to do the same thing in the same way that you do it. Okay? So, planning. So the first, it's not going. Is it going? Is it going? No, it's not going. Okay, 1 second. Where's my arrow? Oh, there we go. So the first thing there is W5H. Have you guys heard about W5H? It used to be.
So.
Have you? Okay.
Wait, I don't know. I don't know if it's the same thing.
Okay. So it used to be a club in school.
Oh no.
But it was during my age. Well, it's like
What are we supposed to know?
it's like a trivia. It's a trivia thing. Well, it was a club thing. It was like a trivia thing where it answers the question of who, what, when, where, why, how. All right. So when you plan, this is 6 things to keep in mind. Is first of all, who. Okay. Like, who is this for? Who is doing what? Okay? If you're the one in charge, if you have someone who's tasked with things and they're not as experienced in planning, make sure you follow up and guide them closely. Versus someone, if you know, if this person has experience, I'll let them do their things more their way. Right? Who is important? You also got to remember the who. It's also as much as it is about the individual, it's about a team. All right. If one person can't handle it, they need to be asking for help. All right. While those who aren't assigned anything, because it is a team effort, even if you're not assigned something, you should make it your take initiative in presenting yourself where help is needed, right? Because it's a team effort. If you see that, they forgot to do this, let me help do that. So it's an individual thing, it's a team thing, and you also have to keep in mind, who is this for? Because that will affect how you do things, right? The other thing is, what? What are you doing? Is it a youth outing? Is it a YA retreat? Is it a praise and worship night? Right? What is the goal here? Is it doable? Can we actually pull this off? Do we have enough manpower? Do we have the budget for it? All right? What are the pros and cons? Is it worth doing this? Is the effect of it versus the effect versus the outcome? Not effect, the effort versus the outcome. Is it too much effort and then not enough results? Or is the effort worth the result? Right? These are things to keep in mind when you're planning. Next is when. I think this is an important thing with church because when we have a lot of church activities. So if you're planning to do something, well, I guess the most obvious thing is don't do it on a Sunday morning because that's when we have church. All right? So you got to keep in mind when, is there things that will be conflict with a different schedule of the church? Or maybe when you're doing it, let's say you're doing a youth activity and it's during June when everyone's stressed out about exams. Do you really think you should do it that time? Right? So think about the when, and then the where. This is important if you're booking a place. You notice with our youth camps now and our Y retreats, your Kuya Richard actually books a year in advance. Because if you wait till like 6 months or 3 months, things run out, right? So you need to keep in mind if you're planning to have it somewhere. I don't know what I'm saying. If you're planning to have it somewhere, you need to book it in advance. Let's say you have a bowling night, or if you're planning a hangout with your group, and there's like 10 of you, keep that in mind that you actually need to book the place, alright? And if you're booking, a tip here is always get the contact person's name and number. Whoever you're, like the location that you're going to, get their name, get their number, because if let's say you book and something goes wrong, you'll be like, oh, I talked to so-and-so and she gave me this seats and blah, 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 blah. That's a tip to keep in mind. Alright. I'll give you guys a couple minutes to catch up. All good? Alright. The next one is why. Why are you doing this? What is the end goal? Is it for fellowship? Is it discipleship, worship? Because this will determine what you do, right? And the next is how. Usually when you're planning a big event, let's say a praise and worship conference, or like a youth camp, some of the common programs you would need to use is obviously the internet. Microsoft Word, right? Doing up schedules or doing up who's doing what. PowerPoint plays a role. Excel, if you're handling finances, very important to use. Maybe even Publisher, which I don't think we have Publisher anymore. Is there still Microsoft Publisher? Not anymore, right? It's like all internet. It's like, it's now Canva, right?
Oh, then no.
No, I mean like for creating booklets and stuff. It used to be Publisher.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think Word has a template for those now.
Yeah, now
I
I
think they
think
kinda
Word's
like
very
combine.
incorporative now.
Yeah.
So some of the things is maybe practice on these things if you have something to do. And now with social media, we have need for posters, right? That's very key thing when you're planning things now is social media, planning posters or videos. These are some of the things that you'll need to use. Just also, like I also mentioned internet, because sometimes, let's say we're planning activities and we come across like a really good like YouTube video or like a Pinterest and it looks really cool. Try to save those. Have like almost like a bank, a folder where things that you could do. Because I know like on YouTube and Facebook and Pinterest, there's a lot of things that they have now that, oh, we can copy that, we can do that. Or like the way that decorations, especially for, I think Pinterest has that a lot, where the way that they decorate the place. Save these resources as you go, because later on you'll need it. So, we're going to do a little bit of practical stuff. Do you guys know how to use Excel? Yes. Yeah.
Don't you use it for
I
like
use it all the
art
time.
and stuff?
Yeah.
The data?
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys are familiar with Excel. You guys know how to do calculating and adding and...
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, I guess you guys are the new generation. I don't need to teach you that. Oh, okay, I will move forward from that because I had this like whole
Oh, you had a
segment
session
Do
on
it.
how to do it?
Oh, on how?
on how to use Excel.
Like use sum and total and
Yeah, and things like that.
Oh.
But you guys know that already.
Yeah.
How did you use it for planning though?
So, for example, here, I will pull up...
You should do it anyway.
yeah.
So,
Whoa.
Screen video.
how do I do this? Oh, I have to move it. Sorry, one second. Is it just big enough?
Can't see that.
Oh, no. Can you
Okay.
see?
So, if you guys were here for the 180 conference, right? So
Oh my
this was a proposal that we had. Alright, just stand up so I can see it. Let me just. So
this is the actual one.
No, this is not what actually happened. This is the proposal that we presented because we had to present a proposal to the Win Canada board and have them approve it. So this was an estimate of what we had. So you have basically a column here for revenue. You guys know revenue, right? Things that, money that you have. So we were thinking if we do registration fee 400 for 200 people, and then you could even do the automatic calculator if you're really lazy, where it's, okay, I didn't do the automatic calculator. Okay. If you want to do the automatic calculator, it is the equal sign, okay, and then 40 times 200 people.
Oh, it was like throw
Right.
for my semester.
And then you
Yeah.
have to drag it, right?
Yeah, and then there you go, it's 8,000. Alright? And then this one for sure I know is total. So the sum of that. So you would just highlight it. Okay, so if let's say we'll cancel this out.
If we like
Okay.
start.
So if you go
doing this
here
miracles.
and then you go, I can't really see from here. It's like I don't understand.
After you can
the
look at your
laptop.
you can look at your screen. Can
No,
you
I
see?
didn't do duplicate. One sec.
Oh.
Maybe I should do duplicate. That would make sense. So much more sense.
She's like,
I guess. Okay. Let me
yo,
see.
that's what happened to our capstone presentation.
Oh,
It was
no.
so stressful. We're like, I was trying to show them, and I'm like, where is it? It's not on my screen. And I looked it up, and it's right there.
Oh,
Like, yo,
no.
okay.
Okay, so here, this just made things so much easier. Okay, 1 second, guys. Oh, it's on the other screen now. What happened? It disappeared.
How many screens are
Yeah,
It's in the other room.
There is another setting for the.
Exit here, yeah. There you go.
That's very random.
And then go
Oh,
to your
okay.
Excel, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, win.
Still,
have to
it still
drag
won't
it.
show.
You might have to drag. Wait, what? Did you duplicate it or you
Tita
stretch-
Riddell.
you stretched it?
Okay, let me see.
At the Ella, it's showing in Tita Riddell's part. How to conquer.
They can see what you're doing there.
Conference
Yeah,
budget.
duplicate. Okay, let's try that
Imagine.
again. Okay, let me.
Can you imagine?
Sorry.
That's
Don't
all.
save.
Look,
Oh, there we go. Okay, let me open the other one. Sorry, guys. It's technical difficulties. Okay, is it big enough? No, it's not. There we go. So, so you guys know how to do the sum, right? Sum total. So it's you just go formulas usually, and then insert auto sum. Like for this, for example, let's say I delete that, and then auto sum, and then it clicks what you want to add up, and it goes there. Alright, so this was a proposal that we did where we have revenue and then we have costs. Alright, so you see some of the, this is very important, especially when you're planning a big event, which I think you will in the future, some you guys, when we leave. Because the next 180 conference, you guys will probably be part of planning that and everything.
God told me to.
So there's that, and then so that's one of the important things is you need to keep track of your revenue and then the cost, and then it goes what's your balance. So this is the balance. This is not actually what happened because we didn't have enough money. So we didn't. This was not approved. We had to like change things around. So that's something. So one of the things you'll start to realize, especially if you're working with youth, is we don't really have a lot of money. So you have to try to do things that doesn't involve money as much.
Yeah.
Unless they become young adults,
They have their own.
then they have their own. But even with like with the church, like families, it's hard for them to be part of something that involves a lot of money. But that this is just a tool for you to, yeah. Let's see. Where were we? No, that's not it. Oh, here's another thing that's really good for Excel. We might as well just go into this since I have it up. So this was actually, it's good for keeping track of registrations. Alright?
Gabe didn't pay.
Okay, this is an old,
Pay, I paid. Oh, you didn't pay.
Anyways, this is an example,
But
guys.
Jody paid.
Jody paid.
This is an example, all right? So you get notes and everything, and then especially when you get into big numbers, receipts. Always important to keep receipts, especially with church, because they need to be able to keep track of everything. So even with this, be organized. I would really say be organized and plan out like so here, general, and what category it falls under, whether it's a prayer team and all that. Keep track of the receipts. What I usually like, this is kind of just me. You know, in the bank they have those envelopes. I always get a lot because it's sealable.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay.
Wow, you're a thief.
Well, it's there for everyone.
She gave me the registration.
In
and
a-
she gave it to me in an envelope.
It's sealed and labeled.
Yeah. She's like, here you go. Thanks.
Because that's one of the things you always know when you're handling money. Is like, they end up giving you like change. I'm like, where am I supposed to put this?
Yeah.
So it's always good to have like a Ziploc bag for change and everything. And then timeline is very important. Because if you see here,
Whoa.
some of the things, because we forget, right? It's good to always mark things down. Okay, so on this day, Joyce gave me $300. On this day, I e-transferred $200 to so-and-so. Alright, so I keep track. Would be like your cash flow, which if you took Excel, they'll teach you about cash flow. Or if you do business, who's doing business here? Nobody. Okay, learn business. Alright, but yeah, those are just some examples.
Did you do all of this at it? Like all by yourself? Or was it like...
Oh yeah, the Excel I did, but you know who's another good person who does this? Is Pinky.
Oh yeah.
Pinky and Ian, they were in charge of the t-shirts, and they did this like whole program where it's like automatically cash in. I'm like, whoa, I didn't understand what they were doing, but
Or like they did a lot of formulas.
yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
I just like add and minus. That's all. That's the extent of my knowledge. Right, on a sum. That's it. I mean, like, if you want to, I'm sure there's like YouTube videos that teach you what to do and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, where were we? Oh, that's that. So who, what, when, where, why? How? The how, like I said, you got different programs that you can use now. Excel, PowerPoint, Canva, things like that. One of the things I hope we can do in the future is just, I was telling this to Dana, is to figure out how to do like podcasts. That would be cool. Right.
Ooh.
We've been talking about that.
Yeah, so...
In the works.
In the works.
Be right back.
I think my podcast just like
I know he has podcasts,
to
so...
for like the young people.
Can I be invited?
Advertising?
Oh.
Hey
Well,
guys,
like I think with podcasts you can advertise and like live, like instead of live streaming, it's a podcast. I think you can do it both. You could do it as an advertising tool and as a content, right? So for our teachings like this, or for like our Bible studies, right? To have that in podcasts, or even like, yeah. But yeah, so in the future, like we keep learning, and that's the thing with planning is you have to really be updated in what's going on in the world, because like there's more and more technology that come out that actually make your life easier in planning. I mean, like Joe was telling me in Hillsong, when they do, they have this app where all the praise and worship team is signed up on. So if they need like, let's say a bassist or they need a guitar, it just opens up, okay, and then if you can take it, you just press click, and it auto fills all your the lineup of worship musician leaders, your worship band,
That's beautiful.
right? So it's like you really need to keep up with the apps because it makes things easier,
Yeah.
right? Like now it's like even with Spotify, right? They have all sorts of tools that you can use to play songs and like develop your own songs and everything. But yeah, so we will get going. Next is, I think, I put this under planning too because Pierre Richard always says this, there's no point if you have something so good but nobody knows about it. So it's very important that you keep communicating. So once you finalize the who, what, when, where, why, spread the word. Tell people about it. it's getting cold in here. Let me put my sweater on. Right? So spread the word, let people know. You can never advertise enough. There's like this saying in the marketing world where all publicity is good publicity. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, but you get the gist of it, right? That publicity is good. Communicating what's going on is good. And like I said, communicating is a two-way street. As you communicate the activities, try to get answers from them. Find out if they're actually coming, so that you can start to get a general idea of who can come and who can't come. All right? I know this is really hard with our generation. They always like scene zone you. I'm like, what is going on here? All right?
But then they're on Instagram.
Right? They're on Instagram. Like, you know, if you have to like message them on Facebook, message them on Instagram, call the parent, do that. All right? It's a two-way street. We can't just like be communicating. They have to communicate back.
Yeah.
Right? I said that. Utilize social media, church announcements, text messages, and I don't know if you noticed that when how your Kuya Richard does announcements is very different from the way other people do announcements. Do you notice some people, like, I'm not trying to put anyone under the bus, but it's like, oh yeah, Rich Night Friday, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Versus like, guess what? This is why you should come. This is gonna be happening, we're gonna have that. Do you notice the enthusiasm when you're communicating? I think part of planning is good communication. You gotta convey the heart of what you're planning. Why is this so important that we are doing this? Right? So I think this is definitely part of planning. Communicate it. In social media and announcements, there's that thing that the youth taught me, #FOMO, fear of missing out, right? Like we were talking about this in our meetings, like get them like excited to be there and get them be like have this sense of loss when they're not and have them want to come to the next one. All right, so there's FOMO, there's okay, so
In conclusion, FOMO.
This is what it's all about.
okay, so be persistent. Be persistent in communicating, especially with younger people. Oh, and if anybody's in your team or the people, the who that you're planning this event for are underage, make sure you communicate it to their parents. Very important, especially if you're like, they have a curfew and your event is at like till like 11 p.m. You better tell their parents, all right? Because they'll be like 11 and 1, oh, my child's not here. What's going on? Communicate, all right? And even after they're confirmed, remind them again as the date come closer. Because like I said, people forget, man. I forget, you forget. So keep communicating it. That's why, like I said before, it's important to work as a team, whoever is planning this, to work as a team and have the whole team be constantly reinforcing this with who you're planning it with. Alright. Let's see. So that's communicating. Now we'll go to implementing. So just some tips here. So you plan, you communicate, and the event is here. Keep in mind, you can plan as best as you can, do the right things, and still something comes up the day of. So there's this thing, the 180 conference, we planned that a year in advance. All right, we planned it a year in advance. We've had like monthly meetings. The day of, like, not the day of, the week that the conference was supposed to be happening, we get a phone call and be like, oh, by the way, we're here at the airport already. I'm like, what? What do you mean? So there was a miscommunication that we thought like a group of delegates from, I think they were from, man, I can't even remember where they're from.
I think it was from Manitoba.
Yeah, Manitoba, Winnipeg. And they're like, oh, by the way, we're here already. What do you mean? We thought you were coming like the next day or the next 2 days. We have no transportations whatsoever. And it was Sunday,
and everybody was at church, and we were like, oh my gosh, what do we do? So we were like, your Kuya Paul was in charge of transportation. So he was like scrambling. I'm like, oh my gosh, yo, can you like pick some people up? Or, oh, Tita Boyet. He was like actually asking the adults in the church. It was a scramble, right? But somehow it worked out. We were like, as he was asking people, like me and Richard was trying to like, okay, what's going on? What happened here? All right. The key thing is to not panic. Even when you're panicking inside, don't panic. Especially you can panic after it's done, but it's because there's no point panicking when the problem is still there. The best thing to do is try to find solutions first. Then you can freak out later. All right. So it somehow it worked out, but man, that was like, oh my gosh, we thought we had it, everything was going smoothly. We had a year to plan. We have been communicating with all these different delegates, and then the day I was like, oh, we're here. I'm like, what do you mean you're here? All right. So that's really one of the tips I would really tell you, man. Be prepared. It's okay. Be flexible. All right, because things do happen. Here are some tips. Your team must know what's going on.
Yeah.
All right, because if you plan something and you guys are communicating two different things. Oh yeah, I thought we were supposed to meet at 8. No, we're supposed to meet at 9. What do you mean? I thought 8:30. If there's like a miscommunication there, you guys will come out. Make sure everyone knows what is going on. And here's the thing: if you're planning in whatever field that you go, especially in business, they will want you to do this. Be at the location first. Be at the location first, because you need to be there when people come in. You can usher them. Okay, hey, yeah, we are here. Have a seat first. We're gonna get going here in a bit. Especially if you're going outside the church. I mean, here in the church they can just chill and hang out. But if you're planning an event outside, it's like they need a familiar face. All right? Because if not, they'll be like, what am I doing here? Is this the right place? Where's everyone? Blah, blah, blah. All right? Be at the location early. Keep a good reputation with establishments. Remember, if they don't like you, it's a reflection of the church. They won't be as accommodating to other groups that are coming from our church, right? Be polite, even if they're at fault, right? If you have worked in customer service, you know this. Even if like the customer is like pretty like rude or whatnot, you just be like, you know what? Just step back. Be kind, be respectful. All right? Because that's a reflection of not just you, but where you're coming from. Like it's a reflection of your character, your family, your church. Right? Next is, so make sure you have all your materials. What I usually like to do is have a checklist. Okay, we have this for bridge nights. Your Kuya Richard sends this, like, we have a list. Okay, we need to have 2 tables set up by this time. We need to have the garbage bag there. We need to have food here. We gotta have the praise and worship set up. We gotta have this room set up as a JYM. We have a checklist of what needs to be done and what materials to have. Now, this is what I do: is I do a visual rundown of the night, and I think this is really key, and it really helps you because, and so picture it. Okay, if let's say for example bridge nights, I come in. What do I expect to see? Okay, praise and worship's there. All right, so we're gonna eat first. I get to talk to people. Oh, maybe I see Pinky. Maybe I see this. Maybe, or then okay, and then word. Okay, what do I need for word? Do I need a PowerPoint for word? What do I need for that? Or praise and worship team. Who's supposed to be? Okay, how do we transition from icebreaker into praise and worship? How does that do? Do we just go in? What do we do? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like a visual rundown, okay, of you as a person. Okay, what will I do? And what are the things that I need as I go along the night? Is it making sense? So it's good to do a visual rundown. I think I said this. Expect the unexpected. Think of different scenarios and have a backup plan. Alright? So for example, we're going to be doing outdoor bridge nights in the summer. So what happens if it rains? What's our backup plan? What do we do? Right? So expect the unexpected falls under that. here's the key thing: when you're planning something, you're gonna be the first to come, and you're gonna be the last to leave. That's pretty much given. You're the organizer. You should be there first, and you have to wrap everything up. Make sure everything is the way it is. Put everything back the way it is and everything. All right. The last one I think is very important. So you plan, you communicate, you've implemented. This I think is, sometimes we get so stressed out that we forget to do this. And it's not there. I thought I wrote it down. All right.
Did you plan this right?
I know, right? This is an old slide.
Expect the unexpected.
Expect the unexpected,
What's your
guys.
backup plan for this?
My backup plan is to just say it out loud. All right.
Good plan. You're doing great.
So at the end of the day, you just have to relax and have fun. All right, relax, have fun. Stop thinking about it and just enjoy. Don't lose sight of why you're doing this. Whether it's to build relationships, to fellowship, to disciple, or to worship, you have fun. Because it's supposed to be fun. Ministry is supposed to be fun. All right? It's supposed to be enjoying. I'm sure there's going to be like hard times. There's going to be like stressful times. But the reason why we do it is because we love doing it. We enjoy doing it. We love to fellowship with the youth or with our group. We love to be able to worship together or to like learn together. At the end of the day, that's one of the things that you should really take away. Any questions so far? That's good. Okay. Next one is post-activity. Sometimes people just do the activity and that's it. But I think there should be like a follow-up almost. This could come with any different ways, I mean. It can come in different ways. It could be advertising, right? I'll be like, you know how in YA retreats we always have that post video? Something like that. Or like a follow-up, with who you invited to the event. I'll be like, hey, guess what? How was it? How did you like it? Blah, blah, blah. What are you looking forward to next time? Or if it's a big event, you need to have your reports all down, your financial reports, your receipts, make sure they're all done. I think this is actually the longest part, is the post cleanup. Make sure everything is back to the way. If you have like rentals, make sure it's all returned. All right? And then always have, and I think we've been doing this as a young people's ministry, is that we've had post-activity meeting. What worked, what didn't. All right? And this is actually one of the things we're doing now moving forward, is that we're starting with our evaluation of the last big event. So what happened last time that did work or that didn't work? And then we'll be able to keep in mind what not to do for next time. Any questions? No. We'll do a bit of a case study here.
Oh,
Case study. Ooh.
I love this.
So,
Like we have to plan something within.
kinda, yeah. Well,
Okay.
well.
What do we do?
All right. I don't know if do you guys do bowling?
You're doing young people's, right?
Are we planning something for you?
Is that actually happening? Bowling
Well,
for
I'm
young
in
people?
school.
Not that I know of right
It
now.
happened, Joanne.
Oh, it already happened.
Oh yeah. So, for example, bowling. So it comes to W5H.
Okay,
Who's your
let's-
target?
So who are we focusing JYM or what?
Who do
Okay.
you guys want to plan?
Michael, Lisa, Daniels.
Let's do
Let's
the
do.
seniors. Just
Seniors ministry.
Seniors ministry, really?
challenge yourself. Okay, no.
Let's do the YAs. YAs are really hard
young
to plan.
adults.
Okay, there you go. Young adults. How would you go about doing that?
Okay, what's our steps?
So, RPM.
RPG.
Role playing
Okay,
game.
what's RPM?
Results.
Result focused, purpose driven.
Okay, so what is the outcome you're planning to achieve?
Why would you
For them.
Because you're the adult.
We're all young.
What is the outcome?
For everyone to just like have a good time
To
and
enjoy. I think the purpose is like fellowship and just get to know the people that you want to bring into like.
yeah,
Should we
invite
write
more
this down?
people.
Company to write this down. Yeah.
Who's
That-
funny?
those are great. Those are great. You could even do like as a bridge thing, right?
Where's your
Your
laptop?
How do you measure?
Just
Good job, bud. How do you measure?
I'll measure what?
No, she's because for result focus, like your goal has to lay down detail, but has to be measurable. Like has to be realistic.
Okay. So let me just clarify a bit here. So the RPM is like a more general thing. All right.
So-
The ones that we just covered is like your action plan. So
okay.
So it's a detail. Because, for example, like with the young peoples, so our result, we want to have a community, let's say. Now our action plan is to do a bowling night to foster that relationship. So how do we do it? We do the W5H. We do the implementing, the communicating, the implementing. So that's the whole PCI thing is your action plan, so to speak.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in this case, what we're gonna do here is like, what's your action plan for this night? Like with the goal in mind about fellowship. Right. So you guys are right. Like plan dates, time, place, where, right? When, what, where, canvas. This is one of the things you really need to know as if you're planning things. You're gonna have to call, like especially for example t-shirts. You're gonna have to call a bunch of different places
That
before you get to the right one.
The cheap one?
The cheap one. Right? And I think your Ate Ella was saying something about this. Your Ate Ella are, na how much are people willing to pay, right? So you're gonna have to figure out, okay, versus like how nice is this place. So if I put $2 more and I get a better place, then I would go for it. Versus not, right? So plan dates, times, place, canvas, right? We did this a while back, like a bowling with a whole church as well thing. So you can when you are at an event, your mind is always is working. Like, oh, I like how they did that. Oh, I didn't like how they did that. And that's actually your experiences, and it is what guides you when you're planning your own events. Right? So plan dates, time, place, book the place. Like I said, make sure you book it, make sure you pay the deposit. Now we have like, I would say, a bit of a complicated system when it comes to finances. Like if you're planning for church activities, if it's below $100, you got to get receipts. If it's over $100, you have to request the money, like I think a few weeks in advance. So if you're planning any big events, make sure you keep that in mind. Get confirmation, remember communicating it. Remind. Actually, sometimes I would even, this is what I do with the youth before, is I tell them an earlier time. Because I know they'll come late. So if I want to start at 6:30, I'll be like, oh, it's at 6, guys, come at 6. Or none of the phrase that we use is, doors open, 6:30.
Yeah.
Remember our crossover nights?
Yeah.
Doors open. But we actually started like 7.
And they're like, why is it taking so long?
Yeah. It's because of that. Because
you guys are gonna be late.
Right? And then make sure you have the money, teams, transportation if needed. Then on location, people kind of like forget this. When you're on location, people still need to know what's going on. Actually, it's more important people need to know, especially like, okay, when someone comes in, what would you do? You're like, hey, you didn't pay yet, or something. You notice that during like our bowling night, sometimes it's like, oh, here's the checklist. Did you pay yet? No, you didn't. Oh.
Get
Or like,
out.
oh, you did pay. Okay, great. I'll mark you as you came. So here's what you do. You go to the bowling place, grab your shoes, and you're in lane so and so. Isn't that more helpful?
Yeah.
Right? So you're.
I have
Sorry,
a
go ahead.
question. Okay, so for that specifically, let's say they didn't pay.
Okay.
So what would you do at that
You
point?
can't play it.
Can't play? Or
Well, usually like well, because we're Filipinos and we don't really like confrontation. So we're like, oh, okay, you can pay next time. And honestly though, I really don't like that because I don't like asking for money back. So what I do is to kind of like guilt trip them and be like, okay, oh, you didn't bring your money, you didn't bring anything. How's this? I will pay for you first. I will pay for you first for the church, and then you pay me back. All right? Because then it's like an added responsibility. It's like, you owe me money, girl.
yeah, true.
Right? And it's like, if someone has to pay for me to get something, I'd feel bad. Right? But that's something, different people have different ways of doing it. Some people will be like, you know what, just pay me back later. Or like, just pay later. If that's the case, this is what I always tell people who are in charge of collecting money for like activities and such. I'm like, if you allow them to utang, then you collect the money. I don't want to collect the money. I hate collecting money. All right? So I was like, either they say yes or no and they pay right away, and if they don't, then you collect if you want them to do an IOU. Because otherwise it's hard. I mean, especially, and if it's things like t-shirt, I'm like, people will buy it. So if they don't have the money, then too bad, so sad. Other people will pay for it. Right? And now we have our debit machines, so no escape really.
But they still had IOUs for the show.
Well, that was not me planning.
I did not touch that money.
I did. That was my answer clear from that. But yeah, and that's the case. That's
Okay.
that. But yeah, make sure you have someone orienting. Okay. And this is where it comes yung visual rundown. Na, okay, this isn't like if I came here, what do I expect to do? And like for example, you guys have been in debuts, debut. All right. You guys kind of basically have an idea of what works and what doesn't, right? Like, for me and my mom, we're always talking about this. We're like, okay, 18 roses take forever. 18 roses take forever. So now, right? It's like, so now, like, now people have learned from that and they're like breaking it down. Because they've experienced it, so now when they're planning it, they know not to do it because they know it's boring.
Yeah.
Right? So something like that. So all these experiences that you've accumulated, you'll be able to use that. Yeah. So that's one. Let's do another one. Okay. This is big enough. It's not big enough. Okay. So this is an example of a Christmas party. How do I make this bigger? Oh no. Go back. Here, let me just... go back.
I think because it's presentation, you can't, but if you exit and then you
Okay,
zoom.
copy and paste. Let's go Word. Can you see it now?
Yes.
That's kind of blurry, but whatever. So, I like planning stuff.
Sushi cookies, mom.
So,
Wait, is this just for? Oh no.
this was an actual
You actually-
Christmas party
Wow,
that we did.
you were so organized.
Alright, so you notice how there's time? And you know, like when you're planning a timed event, make sure there's like a grace period. Exactly, that's a good way to put it. A grace period, because things could go longer than you expect. So I just put like, you see, there's the event. Who's supposed to be in charge of it? Look, movies, Joe was supposed to set up the games and stuff. Mom was supposed to, and things like that.
I thought this, like, what you were planning was just for your family. So I was like, well, you're planning for your family, but this is like for an entire Christmas party.
Yeah,
at
for a
your
Christmas
house.
party.
Okay.
But because my team is me, my mom, and Joe.
Aw.
So that's why.
Oh,
So it was a bit different here
okay.
versus like other people. And then you see like, notes and everything about what to do. And then there's like the time. You kind of run down, okay, what will it take to, okay, let's do this activity, how long will it take, and then have like a grace period in between. But be as detailed as possible and be clear as possible, especially when you're starting out. Make sure each person knows their roles so that there's no confusion, okay, what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a Christmas party. So if you guys are planning Christmas parties for your groups or whatnot, or like even like at church, don't say that. Let's see, what other where is my, oh here we are. Yeah, well, I just want to show, oh, here are some notes. So pros and cons, there are pros and cons to working alone versus as a team. Yes, Pastor, we're almost done. He has like a card saying 15 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Planned it, yeah. So, with the Christmas party, the person who planned it was basically this Christmas party. It was just me, all right. And there's a benefit to that versus if you're planning into a team. You'll notice if you work in a team setting, you have to almost wait for everyone to say yes before you agree on something. So it's like, oh my gosh, this is gonna take forever. Versus if you're working alone, okay, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do this, this, and this. But there's also like a pro in working in a team because you can really split the load, right? And that's one of the things that happened during this Christmas party. I think I remember it was like 2014. I was sick. I lost my voice, and I was the MC of the night.
Oh no.
So I was like, oh, dang it. And the great thing is that I think like Aditin was there, Richard was there, and they just stepped up. Like Richard was like, okay, I'll be your voice. What do you want me to say? I'll be like, I was like, and then they like communicated. And then Aditin and Kuya Alex were there like, Ella, let me know how can I help you. And they just step up. And that's the beauty of having a team. It's like everybody's like on board, like how can I help? How can I help? Right? So there's definitely pros and cons to a team. Well, let's see, what others? Yeah, and there's also there'll also be a time when you have to do split-second decisions. I don't know if you've had that.
Like
just do it. On the spot.
On the spot.
Sometimes you just have to, you almost have to have like, how do you call it? You just have to make the call on whether you have to involve the whole group or just make the decision on the spot. Because there are some that you need to make a decision right away. And so you have to gauge that and see like, okay, this is happening, let's just do this, right? I think there was one time when it was like, the weather was really bad. And so on the spot we decided, okay, no more bridge night, cancel it, go, communicate it right away. Right? It's almost like a split because things happen, right? Oh, there, advice. I guess last minute advice. Teamwork. Teamwork is really, especially, you guys need to learn to work in a team. And you're gonna have to learn to work with people you don't necessarily like. Or you have issues with sometimes. You just have to keep focused on whoa.
I was just yelling.
You want
You want to say something?
Oh, but you really are late to say something.
But with teamwork, you're gonna have to work with people who are not. Even you do this at school, right? You got group projects or things like that. And I hate it, right? I was like, I'd rather do it by myself.
Yeah, because like
Right.
you know that they're not gonna wow. They're gonna
Synchronized. Yeah.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I think one of the beauty in working in a church setting is that despite your differences, you know there's only one focus, right? I have to say it. And like I said here, stay calm, take charge. If you're in charge, you be in charge. Don't be like, oh, but this happens with these guys, with the youth a lot, especially during youth camp. We'll be like, but Ate, that's not how it is. You did, like, we want this, blah, 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 blah. Now they experience it during when they were doing the activities. Because like, when they were youth, they were like, but Ate, you didn't say the rules were supposed to be this. Or like, Ate, we finished first. Ate, this, Ate, that. I'm like, no, they won. That's it, period. All right, just take charge. Don't let like the crowd push you. And you see this with like sometimes you see this with teachers, right? Like sometimes they let the crowd like kind of overwhelm them, and then the message gets lost. No, you take charge. You were put there for a reason, right? And learn by experience. Especially, you guys know about the zombie thing. Have you guys?
Would you like to speak on that?
Yeah, so that was a big learning curve. If you guys, do you guys know what happened with the zombie thing? Well, just what happened?
Was it a youth camp?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was there.
Were you
That was
there?
my first youth camp.
Oh, dang it.
Depression.
Yeah, well, you guys know what happened. Like, made a bad call, and what's funny is nobody realized it was a bad call, and they all agree with me. And then afterwards, it's like, no, we didn't agree with you. It's like, well, they didn't exactly say it like that, but they're like, whose idea was it? Oh, it was Ella. It was Ella.
Was it?
Yeah, it was my
I
idea.
liked it.
I think because like for the previous youth camps, we had night games, right? So we were so used to it, and I think that was a time where, I don't know, The Walking Dead was a thing.
Yeah.
Big, so it was like living in it.
But you had half of the people like asking you the year after, can we do it again? And then the other people
I was
were
like, no. You know, because of that, we were banned from having activities at night.
Aww.
Yeah. So it was a great learning curve. Now I know you're not supposed to scare the kids. And now I know that your attitude really makes great.
Oh my gosh. She was like
Actress.
It was like, oh my gosh.
Can we do it with young adults?
Yeah.
Not my call.
What if we all sign a consent?
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna cry.
I will not blame
I'm gonna tell
myself.
on.
I will not be scared.
One of the things that really struck out to me, here's a learning experience that I had from there, is that, yeah, like if it was done well, it would have been really great. Because it was like, I planned it really well. No, not trying to.
It was though.
Yeah.
Like you have to get water first, then you gotta get this, get the shelter, get your team.
Yeah.
It was actually, and the idea behind it is that how well do you work under pressure?
Uh-huh.
Like, do you stick, because the theme was koinonia,
Hence
about
the kids
being
started.
together, but everybody just like split it, right? What happens to teamwork? All right. Well, the intent was fine. Like it was okay.
I think it'd be good for leaders. We should do it.
Yeah.
Maybe for leaders.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I came out from that is that Pastor Nani was telling me at the end of the youth camp, what were they talking about? Were they talking about the zombies or were they talking about God? And that goes back to the reason why we even have a youth camp in the first place. It's to point people back to God, right? And if that takes the precedence, then it's not worth doing. Right? So that was a real learning curve for me. Right? And you guys feel free to make your own mistakes. But learn from my mistakes and learn from the mistakes. Like Yukio Richard always says this, right? Save your time by learning from other people's mistakes. Alright? Because save your time anyways, because you're gonna end up making your own mistakes. So the thing is to like learn. I love, there's this quote that I learned, can't remember where I got it from a TV series. It's like, where you fail shows where you're vulnerable. Alright? It gives you a time to reassess, to reevaluate what actually is where you're weak at and where you should strengthen. But yeah, I think that pretty much sums that. Any questions on planning, communicating, implementing? No questions? Well, we finished 5 minutes early. I hope that makes sense. I hope that helps you. And whatever you have plans for the future, you just
Don't do a zombie game.
don't do the zombie game. That's the highlight of the teaching. Don't do the zombie game. Well, man, even your Kuya pastor has made mistakes, and the thing is to learn from them, right? You plan, you do as much as you can, and then at the end of the day, you just have fun with it.
How did you feel that mistake was made, and then afterwards, was it hard for you? Well, not hard, but was it how can I say this? But you were regretting it. You were thinking about it a lot and stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't deserve to be a leader. I didn't, and Because here's the thing, it was the first time that JYM's, Junior Youth, was at youth camp.
Oh.
So what broke my heart was I see like, they come in one after the other, eh? Oh, somebody twisted the ankle. Oh,
no.
someone's crying. Oh, someone's having a nervous breakdown. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get killed. You know that feeling when you're like you did something to your sibling and your mom hasn't found out. It's like, oh my gosh, mom's gonna kill me. Like, okay, it's okay. Like, oh man, it was.
No, Sophia. I was like carrying her because she sprained her ankle and she couldn't run and she's in my team and like it was just the two of us and I was like, okay, I'll carry you.
I wish I experienced it. My team at the Jamaica was so like strict. She was like, we're staying in this cabin. And then it was like 15 minutes over and everyone's like, guys, it's dead. And then we will not believe it. We will stand for it. And I was just like, guys, that's more.
It was your.
Yeah. I was like, can we go up now? So I didn't get to experience anything.
Bro, like I remember because like I knew she was inside that cabin, so I was like telling her like, Daniel, it's me, or get out.
And then Mike was like, don't listen to me. After Ruth is outside.
She's not your friend at the moment.
But yeah, like in response to your question, like it was, like I don't think we like failure a lot in general, and for me it really hit me hard, but that's like I look back now and I can laugh about it. I mean, I'm like laughing about it. People like Yuki Richard always brings it up, and I can laugh about it now. But during that time, it was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. That was so bad, so bad. But after a while, you kind of just you get over it.
Yeah.
You just you start you know for sure that you're not doing it again next time, and you just start planning the way that you're planning with a different take on it. I think that was a special time. That was a bit different in circumstances because that was a year when everything happened to me all at the same time.
Oh yeah.
So it was a bit different. But now when I make a mistake, when I do something and I'm like, I messed up, I was like, okay, sorry, let's try to do better next time. And I think that's part of your growth as a person, as a Christian, is that you start to learn that your defeat is not the end. Your failures is not the end. You start to learn that there is value in these failures. That's why I love one of the things, I don't know if you guys have heard your Kuya Alex preach on F+, on failure. If you haven't, watch the live stream. Really great example. As you grow older, your perspective of things change. What before you thought was like, my life will never be the same, you'll be like, oh, it's just me being emotional at the time, right? But now I find value when we make mistakes. And I learn from that. And I've learned to be more gracious to myself. I think that's one of the things as leaders that we need to have, especially when planning, to be forgiving of ourselves. Because we always say, oh yeah, just be quick to forgive others. But we sometimes have to learn how to forgive ourselves too. And understand that we're also work in progress. That we do make mistakes, but we can do better next time. It's the same thing with in Christianity. Like for me, when I sin, I'm like, there are things I struggle with, and then when I relapse, and I'll be like, oh God, I'm so sorry. Let me trust in your forgiveness, and let me do better next time. I pray that, and I'm like, okay, stop thinking about it anymore, Ella. Stop thinking about it, and just move forward. So it takes a bit. You need to mature into it, and to really be self-disciplined in doing it. Yeah. So I don't know if that helps, but I hope it does. Any other last minute questions? I think we're pretty much done here then. Thank you guys. I hope you learned a lot.
You're welcome. RPG.
So next time you guys will be planning this. The conference you guys will be planning it. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 2023.
2023.
Or earlier.
Not here though, it's somewhere else, right?
Yeah, but there's still a lot of I think it's harder to plan when you're going away actually. Because you have to make sure that they have all their passports ready.
Yeah. At the LA was talking to me about it and she's like, Daniel, there's too many passports. travelers.
And you have to make sure all their bags are like correct.
Yeah.
They make sure they packed everything right.
Mhm.
Have all the parent consent, especially when you're traveling. Oh, gotta make sure you have insurance.
Oh my gosh, true.
How did they had their own planning? Because we were here,
Yeah.
but the ones that were flying here,
They have their own planning.
They
for
had
sure.
their own like struggles probably.
Because you have to plan like, okay, we need like
Transportation.
transportation, and then as well like the fee
And
the
accommodation.
and like
Chaperones, food.
and like I think it's like if you don't pay, you actually don't go type of thing, right? I think
That's supposed to be it.
yeah for.
But I don't know how they actually did it. Because
Okay.
like, yo, during the 180, we're like,
Oh my gosh, Ate.
the week before, we're like, oh, I think because Richard's like our interchurch communications person, and he's like, oh yeah, Tita told me there's 2 more people coming. I'm like, no, Richard,
Yeah.
we have no more room. What are you talking
I
about?
remember that.
So
The Ella, they can hear you.
oh, hi.